Hi again. In the last video, we talked about how quadratic functions change. In this video, we're going to talk about solutions to quadratic functions. Now, in a quadratic function, the solutions are really just the x-intercepts. Every time the graph of a quadratic function crosses the x-axis, that's a solution. And sometimes people also call these roots or zeros. These are all just names for the same thing. They're all just different ways to say solutions or x-intercepts. If we think about what a quadratic function looks like, the graph of a quadratic function looks something like that. It makes the shape of a letter U. Now, the graph has a special name, and the graph of a quadratic function is called a parabola. It's kind of a weird word, but that's the name. A parabola is what we would call the graph of a quadratic function. Just like a linear graph is called a line, a quadratic graph is called a parabola. Now, if we put kind of a scale down here, let's just make that 1, 2, 3, we can see that this parabola crosses the x-axis twice. It happens back here at -1, and it happens up there at 3. That means that this quadratic function has 2 solutions because it has 2 x-intercepts. And those solutions are at -1, 0, that's the ordered pair that's at this spot right here, and 3, 0, that's the ordered pair that's at that spot. Or another way that you can write solutions are you could say x equals -1 and x equals 3. You have to either write the ordered pair or the x equals. Otherwise, it's just a number and nobody really knows what you're talking about. So those are 2 ways that you can write solutions. Let's look at another graph. Let's look at this. Now, a parabola can also be flipped upside down. And this parabola just has 1 x-intercept right there at the very top. And so that means that this quadratic function has 1 solution, and that's happening at 3, 0, or you could say x equals 3. So it's possible for quadratic functions to have 2 solutions, and it's possible for quadratic functions to have 1 solution. It's also possible for quadratic functions to have no solutions. For example, like that. If your graph is either raised above the x-axis and going up, or if it's like down here, let's say, below the x-axis and going down, it's never going to touch the x-axis. So this situation is where the quadratic function has no solutions because there are no x-intercepts. So it's possible for quadratic functions to have 2 solutions, 1 solution, or no solutions depending on how many x-intercepts the quadratic function has. And those solutions happen wherever those x-intercepts are at. Now, we know that x-intercepts always happen when y equals 0. So let's make sure that we write that because that's an important point here. So x-intercepts, that says x-intercepts, happen when y equals 0. Notice in all of these situations up here, all these ordered pairs, the y-coordinate is 0 because any point on the x-axis is going to have a y-coordinate of 0. That means if you have, for example, a table that represents a quadratic function, we know that the second change would be 0 out here, but we're not going to, or would be constant. We're not going to find that though. Looking at this, we know that this quadratic function represented by this table, let me put it up here where you can see it. This quadratic function represented by this table has 2 solutions. Those solutions are here and here, because those are the 2 places when y equals 0. If you were to graph this, the 2 places when y is 0 would be the 2 places on the x-axis, and therefore would be the 2 solutions. So these right here are the two solutions, and they happen at -3, 0 and -1, 0. If you were to graph this, it would cross the x-axis at -3 and -1. You could also remember write it like that. Okay? So we can find, or we can identify the solutions in a graph by finding, just looking and seeing where it crosses the x-axis, if it does at all. And then in a table, we can find the x-intercepts or the solutions by looking to see when the y value is 0, and that tells us when the solutions are. So I hope this video was helpful. Feel free to try the practice in Google Classroom that goes along with this video and see what you've learned. Remember, you can try it more than once until you get a 100% and you are learning tons. Thanks so much, and I will talk to you later. Bye.